Hello, hello, and welcome to another Sunday Superversive Livestream. I am your host, Ben Wheeler, and Anthony Marquetta will be along in just a moment. Here we're talking today. I trust my audio is okay. I hope it is okay. I've got the right microphones and everything. Uh, actually, I should check that. Today we're going to be talking about arguments, arguing online. Is somebody here? Is somebody here in with me? No, not yet. Part of the problem is that a lot of people don't know how to argue online. It's a big issue. It's a big rolling ball of pain and arguments and ranting and such like so forth. And where can things go with it? I am hearing a clicking sound. Why am I hearing a clicking sound? Hmm. Since nobody's watching right now, I'm going to just check the sound. Well, where can things go with it? I am hearing a clicking sound. Why am I hearing a clicking sound? Cool beans. So, everything sounds good on my end anyway. Right now, I'm looking online at a bunch of stuff. Somebody just went, "Hey guys, if you're a single guy and you're 20, freedom money starts at 200,000." I don't think so, dude. I don't think anyone knows what they're talking about when they say money. It's either too much or it's too much. Uh, Honestly, as long as you can buy uh, a car, like a used car with what you have in the bank, you've got freedom money. You can go. You can go do something else. Uh, I'm just waiting for Anthony. This might not be a long stream today. So what brought this on is that basically people are arguing about debt and debt forgiveness and so on and so forth. And the problem is that there are multiple perspectives, and depending on what you're looking at and the context for those perspectives, it could be a completely different thing. And the reason for that is quite simple. Who has the what has the moral responsibility to pay off the debt? Or in what way is debt moral? You see, to people on the right, in general, paying off the debt is seen as always moral. School debt, especially, we're talking about millennials. We're talking about millennials and school debt and arguments about them. The problem is that the older generation kind of has a weird, hazy eye tinted view of, um, let's see here. I'm just trying to think it through. Hey, Bradford. It's just me right now. But yeah, school debt. And so arguing about it, you have to sort of consider what the opposing argument is. We are not arguing one person versus another. There is one group of people that you're arguing for, and then two sides arguing towards them. Um, the first one, of course, being the communists, the socialists, the leftists, the liberals, the demagogues, and so on and so forth. They want children in the debt and miserable and eating bugs and in the tubes, but they say that they don't deserve the misery that they're experiencing. Right? They have this sort of paternalistic, hey, you got screwed over, or you're the victim. Depending on how slimy they are, and a lot of them are really slimy. They could go the whole thing, like, hey, you're the victim. Oh, hey, you're this. Oh, you're that. Oh, poor you. And while I'm not a self pitying individual, like, I went out and did yard work while I have a cold, all right? It's the middle of allergy season. I have a cold. I have a sinus infection, and I'm doing back breaking labor. I'm not somebody who coddles himself. But there's a certain level of if it's a true wronging, if it is a real sin that has been committed against them, it should be considered. Uh, the idea that hold on, who's messaging me? Anthony, why? The idea that people are 100% responsible for everything that happens to them is not true. Now, I've literally walked out of a Calvinist church because they were all like predestination and stuff like that. I'll get to that in a minute. But there's a certain point where everything is both your fault and half of the things are not your fault. Ultimately, we don't have free will, we have liberty will. We are at liberty to choose things that we do. Read the books, go eat Taco Bell instead of McDonald's, jobs. Like, as no, this might sound weird, but your job is 100% your choice, even when you're ordered to do something different. It's why in the Nuremberg trials, people didn't take the, oh, I was doing what I was told argument. Sure, for the guy who has no idea where the trains go, that works. He's just some dude sitting in some hodunk town and watching the trains go by. He doesn't know jack. But somebody who was like the head administrator, he does have culpability. The guards have culpability. There's levels to this, right? Like a soldier who accidentally guns down a family while on patrol or something like that because he thought they were enemy combatants, made a mistake, but he doesn't have the same culpability as somebody who burned down My Lai or whatever it is. And they burned down a lot more than My Lai. I think it was My Lai. I can't remember what Vietnamese village they burned down. And there's more, and it goes down deeper, deeper. What's responsibility? What's not responsibility? I am responsible for what I put into my novels and what I put into episodes of Pinkerton's Ghosts. It doesn't matter what I feel about the subject. There is an objective truth that I am following that I must be true to. The muse, the spirit, the art, the Holy Ghost, and so on and so forth have standards for me. I have to meet them. If I don't meet them, I am culpable for not meeting them. It is a 100% my responsibility to write what I write. I can't, so like, this is weird, but I can't actually think of things besides like writing that aren't, that are as close to 100% solo, you are responsible for things as they can be. This might sound weird because, oh, but Ben, somebody could go to McDonald's or Taco Bell. But the thing is, the impetus is, I'm hungry. Even if they're an absolute obese, has to drive around on a forklift hover round monster of a person, they still have the choice to go to Taco Bell or McDonald's or to live a healthier life and say, get Chipotle. The choices are there to be made, but there are impetus that are not under our control. Well, you might say, well, they ate 8 hours ago, but the thing is that hunger doesn't depend on very rigorous um, standards. There's patterns you can make, but if you say go out to work out, you're going to be hungry after you work out if it's a good workout. Even if you eat beforehand, your hunger will come sooner. So the choice there, the personal responsibility is different, right? Depending on what circumstances you're in. Writing has practically 100% responsibility, personal responsibility. Eating, has like 25% something else that you can't control. 70, or you can, but it's not something anyone thinks about controlling. And honestly, it's based on so many different factors that you might as well not. To 75% their control. What place do they go to feed their hunger? And then, something happening way back when your ancestors were born. A guy who got sold into slavery in Africa has no personal responsibility on the slave ship. All right, He doesn't. He might have done something stupid that got him in there, slept with the king's wife or whatever. So he sold it to the Arabs, and so he sold it to the pale-faced bearded men, and then to the pale-faced Anglos. I did something there. You might recognize it. But, you know, once chains are on a person, they're not necessarily responsible for remaining chained. People might go, well, liberty or death. Well, the chains are already on you, and you don't come from a culture who valued liberty or death. Like a lot of cultures aren't European in any standard. If I finally get to whatever country I want to get to, I fully expect them to not have the same standards of personal freedom or even understand my views on personal freedom that they go through. It's a long and complicated and messy thing. So with things like uh, student debt, what is the line? What is the percentage of personal responsibility that those people have? My argument is that they have, I want to say that it's like a three quarters not them, one quarter them. Yes, they chose to go to college, but but everyone around them, there was not a single dissenting voice that I can think of when I was a kid. All right, every single voice said go to college. There was no dissension. It was socially accepted. It was demanded of them. There were financial incentives. There could be. What are you, Anthony?
I have been here listening because I don't know the main topic yet.
Oh my goodness, I haven't realized you've been here the entire time. Uh,
Oh, a couple minutes.
okay, so you heard what I was talking about with personal responsibility and everything, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna finish up my argument about it, and then we'll go on for the next bit. How are you doing, by the way?
Wonderful.
Fantastic. So, from my perspective, and I think from an objective perspective, the these people who went in there went in for degrees that they couldn't afford, that really they shouldn't have gotten. While the person with the underwater basket weaving has an absolutely stupid degree, um, you know, who was there to tell them no? Who was there to tell an 18-year-old who doesn't get the drink, who some 18-year-olds don't even know how to drive yet, you know, all these different things that means they're not a responsible person. They can be drafted, but honestly, you don't need a lot of personal incentive to go into the army. You're told where to go and what to do. I've got a friend in the Navy, and he gets told where to go and what to do. Like, they made him work like a 15-hour workday because everyone got sick in his repair school, for whatever he was doing. With the COVID, um, all these different stuff. Like it's not. There's no personal impetus there. There's no free will. So yeah, so what we're talking about is on the John C. Wright blog, we are fighting people, and apparently porn comments who have, or not porn comments, they're weird, spammy, like, oh, they like this Missouri thing. And it's like, nobody on the East Coast has ever liked a Missouri thing. You're lying to me. But whatever. But there's been a few characters who basically don't really get it. They don't understand personal responsibility. They don't understand what's going on with this stuff, and they think that by ridiculing the opposition, they will drive people to their camp. They think that by not reaching out in compassion and saying, "Hey, you were lied to," with trauma, the admittance of trauma, of wrongdoing to you, is part of the healing process. Part of salvation is saying, I have wronged. I have been wrong, I have sinned. It is so tried and true that it is intrinsic to civilization itself being able to admit that something's right or something's wrong. But people are in denial about it. So, Anthony, take it away for a little bit while I set something up so people can be visually entertained as well.
Yeah, so this discussion he's referring to, I am not going to quote anybody in it directly, especially because, and this is actually part of the problem that I'm going to get into here, most of these people are people I agree with on 90% or so of topics, if not more than that. Maybe even 95. However, there's this thing with millennials where millennials are the designated whipping boys of the world. You are allowed to say whatever you want about them, no matter how nasty, cruel, condescending, insulting, and they deserve it, so it's totally okay. So I will get people who go, yeah, they're whiny, emotionally incontinent children who are lazy, they don't want to work, they don't want to pay their debts. This is all a lie, obviously. I mean, it is it's not a lie because they are it's not a direct lie. It's not a lie in that it's not them who are lying, but it is a lie in the in the larger sense of what they're saying about millennials is not true. I'm going to quote Brian Niemeyer on millennials in this case. Millennials' difficulties finding meaning and prosperity aren't the result of laziness or self-entitlement. Their well-meaning elders taught them to play the game that worked for them while the rules were drastically changing. The old strategies no longer work, and millennials who try to use them are increasingly exploited, impoverished, and deprived of hope. Why do members of older generations, especially baby boomers, discount millennial concerns or even mock them? The uncomfortable and unavoidable truth is that bizarro America, where millennials are forced to live, was built one brick at a time by the choices and actions of their elders. It's easier for boomers to blame millennials than to accept their share of responsibility for this deplorable state of affairs. To be sure, millennials must take responsibility as well. They can't spare, they don't have that luxury. The advent of bizarro America wasn't their fault, but now it's inescapably their problem. I'm going to pause from reading Brian's words for a moment to say that, by the way, is the cardinal sin of millennials. We have been lied to and insulted and manipulated by everybody else our entire life, so naturally we don't have faith or trust in anybody. That is the problem. Unfortunately, this is our response is exactly the wrong thing. We need to have faith and trust in the one person that matters, which is Jesus Christ. And Megabuster Shepherd says we're kind of a broken generation. No, we're a completely broken generation. I think you're actually understating it. We are a totally broken generation, and we are going to be the downfall of the West. I have a lot of extremely negative things to say about millennials. The thing is that millennials are victims in this more than anything else.
Yep.
That's the problem. To
In
be
this
sure,
instance, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm reading Brian Niemeyer, but you can go.
So in this instance where we're talking about student debt and sort of like the germ of it, like isn't really rooted in millennials compared to I don't know, like Vietnam for boomers or Gen Xers or whatever. Keep going.
So to finish the quote from Brian Niemeyer, which is on an article of his, uh, the title of the article is "Millennials Don't Live in America." The decline of faith and traditional morality in recent generations is a spiritual disease inherited from their forebears. Continuing to embrace materialism and moral relativism will only impede millennials' ability to find the truth that can bring the freedom they deeply desire, and which offers a way out of the trap that prior generations unwittingly set for them. So my patience with people who mock millennials is actually at an all-time low right now. The reason is that this shows a lack of Christian charity. You're essentially seeing an entire generation putting out repeated cries for help. They don't trust anything. They don't trust if people that men are men and women are women. They don't trust what you're telling us about religion, about God, about society. And your response to this is to say, you know what your real problem is? You whine too much. You know what your real problem is? We raised you to be too weak. So the proper response to that, if you'll excuse my language for a moment, by any sane human being is fuck you.
Yep.
And that is exactly what we're seeing. This is a sane and rational response, not an unreasonable one. When somebody is saying your problems are imaginary and you're a whiner, then your response to that, it doesn't matter how dispassionately they're saying it, it doesn't matter how logically they're trying to put it is an insult. You are insulting them, and you're doing it with a lack of Christian charity and compassion. There is a cry for help coming from a generation, and your response is, if only you hadn't gotten so many participation trophies. That was never the issue. The issue was that we were sold a bill of goods. Yes, a lot of the mistakes we made were dumb mistakes, but you know what? Taking advantage of dumb people is still immoral, and we
Yep.
have been taken advantage of. The answer is, what is the solution? I don't know, but I do know that the beginning of it is acknowledging that there is an actual problem instead of pretending that the problem is, well, millennials were just raised to be weak. What a joke of a response that is. What a lack of compassion that shows. What a lack of Christian charity that shows. I have no patience for it anymore. I'm tired of it. The mockery and the contempt for an entire generation of people that did nothing to deserve this contempt is immoral. Now, at the very least, I would respect it more if people admitted that they just hated millennials, but we don't even get that much. At least when Vox Day mocks boomers, he is very, very clear about the fact that he hates baby boomers. He will say it, he will shout it to the heavens, and everybody will agree with him, and he will back up why he hates them with reasons. People will say all of these horrible things about millennials and end with, I don't hate them, they're just weak. To which the response to that is, and you think people are just going to react to that by going, oh, well, at least he doesn't hate us.
Uh,
They're going to say, fuck you, because they're right. They're absolutely right to respond that way. That's how you respond to people who insult you.
yep. The Brad.
So,
Mm,
the Democrats are wrong, but so are the Republicans.
yep. So
Go
Mega
ahead.
Mustard Shepherd says I was trying to be slightly positive, and of course my response is you fool. Aha. But no, dude, we know. The thing is that there's no positive spin on this. There's no good thing. There's no benefit of it outside of Christ. It's all downhill. But the thing is that keeping a Christian perspective, keeping a Christian idea on these things is much better, produces a stronger result than just either throwing them to the wolves or insulting them to their face. Bradford Walker says when the critical mass of millennials figure out they can crash the system by simply ceasing to participate as the boomers demand, they will. He's absolutely right. The system is built on young people, and if there are not enough young people to cater to the boomers, things will get bad really quick. Megabuster Shepherd says, I wait the day we feed the beetles to the wood chipper. So do I, brother. So do I. That is a based, red pilled, and Christ pilled day, if there ever was one. Bradford Walker says, the day of the pillow precedes the day of the rope. Yes. The fact of the matter is, I'm really surprised we have not seen more old people like patricide, that sort of thing. Like people are going crazy out there. We had a week where there was like a shooting a day. Like April is one of the bloodiest months in the last 20 years. That isn't September 11th or a battle in Fallujah or whatever. It's been bad. There's been shootings all the time, riots. It's been horrible. But the fact of the matter is that we still haven't hit peak yet. We haven't hit anything like peak, and we won't for a very long time. And I do agree that one of the first signs is that of us.
Talking.
Was that?
There you go. I
Uh,
lost you for a moment, but you're back.
okay. One of the first signs. I'll be simple with it then. One of the first signs that things are starting to hit their peak is when the day of the pillow comes, and a lot of boomers just starts dying. I watched a video where it was some boomer English woman, and she was like, I don't even want non vaccinated people in the same carriage as me. Listen, you have the right to exercise freedom to stay home. And if that was my grandmother, I would disown her. Um, but thankfully, it's not so. Megabuster Shepherd then says, which precedes the day of the rake. Absolutely, the Canadians must pay, but soon. Soon. But sort of going back on topic with these things, you know, we're harping on like Christian charity, Christian ideas, that sort of thing, because the people we stand with are Christians. We are not going to somebody and say, "You do not follow this standard. Why are you not following this standard which is not meant for you?" Christian standards are meant for Christian people. If you want a society that works, maybe more people should follow those standards. But the Arabians, the Indians, the Chinese have worked just fine without standards like ours for a very long time. Excuse me. So yeah, like these aren't people who are antithetical, who are outside the Christian perspective. These are people who have explicitly said that they are Christian. We are not holding them to any standard that they themselves do not hold. If you want a society that does not forgive, think of like the Arabian societies. They are notoriously bloodthirsty and revenge. Same with Gauls and gods do I hate Gauls and all these other and the Anglo-Saxon people, that sort of thing. Italians, very famous for their grudges. The we're not talking about a people like that, and that's by the way when they were Christian too. So, uh, we're not talking about that. These are right wing Christian people who have explicitly called themselves Christian. So I wanted to set the standards there so people didn't think that we were giving them something that they were not inheritors to or ideas that they would not accept. Um, just because we have to be fair to them, even if they're wrong. All right, go for it.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments as well. So finally, I just responded with what I think will be the last response on the thread because I wrote this. So somebody just responded, and again, I'm not going to say who because these are people who I would otherwise agree with, and I'll probably get along with in the future. But they wrote LOL when I said, "You call out an entire generation as whiny, emotionally incontinent children. You have the call to call somebody else condescending," which is true. And he just responded, lol. So I said, "Alright, you're no longer interested in talking, so I promise this will be my last word." Read this thread and see a massive blind spot with people who I otherwise agree with when it comes to the millennial generation. A whole generation shackled into debt, giving out repeated cries for help, and your and many others' response to it is to claim that their problems are imaginary and they're whiny, incontinent children. This is wrong, evil in fact, and I'm tired of it. As disappointed as you are in me, I am just as disappointed in you. I see this as a common blind spot among older generations, but I do not regret calling it out. I hope you'll consider the idea that perhaps the proper response is not to repeatedly insult them and call their problems imaginary, but at the very least start out by acknowledging the problem as real and the issue as substantial, but you won't even do that. That is the real issue. Like, people ask me what the answer is. I don't know. Possibly you could start having the colleges start taking responsibility for some of this debt. How about if you don't get a job within a year with your degree, then the colleges need to take responsibility for it. It's an idea. I don't know if it would work, but you need to do something. Otherwise, a whole generation is destroyed. And then your response to that is, LOL. It's, well, they at least they don't need to go into the jungle. My parents didn't need to go into the jungle either, for that matter, if you want to go there. In fact, my parents didn't need to go anywhere. They weren't in any foreign wars. We've been in perpetual foreign wars.
Yep.
Aaron VT says, "Does anyone else feel that it was made as difficult as possible for millennials to marry and have children? Feel like all the abuses against us all work towards that end point."
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was 100% intentional.
Yep.
Number one was intentional, and number two was engineered by the boomers, and specifically by the boomers who were in power, not just any random baby boomer.
Grandmas
Any
and
random
tias.
baby boomer probably hasn't thought all that hard, but the boomers who are in power, they're the ones who did it.
Yep. It was pursuit of money. Like if there's any god of America, it's money. Even above things like personal freedom and stuff like that, it's just money. It's cash. Uh, yep. So let me see here. Let me ask you guys: how do we reignite the fire in Protestant faith? America is a Protestant nation from its very founding. This is true. While there were Catholics in America, that isn't the same as Catholics.
Yeah, America was definitely Anglo-Protestant from its beginning.
Yep.
With that said, I feel that I should probably sit out of a discussion on reigniting the Protestant faith.
So this actually deserves its own stream. It is a big issue, and you know what, Anthony? If you want to, we can talk about it next week or something. Just because it's a really big issue. But essentially, okay. Essentially, most people are these days syncretists. They have a set of beliefs that they don't necessarily know where they come from, but they follow it. That's why you get like Christian danger moms who haven't been in a church for a decade, or you get like people who believe in, oh yeah, just be good to everyone or something. You know, people don't actually believe in anything. They have beliefs. Completely different thing. It's like saying people don't have cars, they have, or people don't have horse-drawn carriages, they have carriages. You know, it's horse-drawn carriages, it's the full thing. The horses are the religion, the carriages are the belief. So to light fire in it is basically people need to be punished for being Christian. I know that sounds probably heartless or whatever, but if there's negative problems for being Christian, that's going to weed out all the people who are dumb and not really a part of it, you know, the Popovs and the heretics and whatnot, and it would leave the good ones. And the good ones would get stronger. You know, please stop praying for my grandfather. He's getting too strong. That sort of thing. I love that meme. But, you know, how about this Mega Busted Shepherd? Prepare up some questions for us and some ideas, and we will talk about it next week. Um, Assuming something doesn't happen. I am actually going to be participating in a strongman tournament as a volunteer. I might be late. So,
Ooh, fun stuff.
it does sound fun. But, so this is such a big topic, I can't get into it, but we'll get into it next week, God willing. So, there's one that came up just now. I'm going to deal with this argument first because it is the dumbest argument. It is stupid argument. It is an IQ 0 argument. So why do you expect me to pay for the debts of students who are completely unrelated to me? So here's the thing. You have already paid the money. There's nothing more. Like here's the thing. You've paid your taxes. You've participated in this, that, and the other thing for the government, right? We just got out of tax season, and apparently there's been an extension for like May 15th or something. I can't remember. You know, you have paid that money in already. Why in the world would you prevent it being done from somebody else? Like, here's the thing: people don't get it. The debt is owned by the schools, which are government institutions, and the government, which is a government institution. You've already paid the money. It's not privately owned by and large. Even the privately owned debt is uh, is completely guaranteed by the government. At no point will they not be paid, even if somebody dies. All right? If somebody drops dead and hasn't paid a single cent of their student loan debt, they will still receive the money from your taxes. Bradford Walker says, I hate that argument. I also hate folks who whine about abolishing student debt. I absolutely agree that abolishing all student debt is an untenable position. However, there's rhetoric and dialectic. If I am in a rhetorical argument, I'm going to say abolish all student debt and then let them argue me back so we can hit a middle ground. I have to take the strong position there because I'm arguing a strong position. Hey, we could stop bombing Palestine for 5 seconds to fix the loan problem. We don't need to drop bombs every day. Yeah, you know, like once a month, twice a week or something, you know. But the The problem with argumentation, especially on the internet, is that you have to declare what your emotions are. And if you have nothing but contempt for people, you can disguise the contempt with how you type, right? Like if I can tell when Anthony is angry or not, Anthony can tell when I'm angry. It's harder for me because I'm always kind of angry, but I can be angrier. I can always be angrier. So it's something that you can tell. You can tell what's going on. So hiding dispassionate, which is really called a lack of, which is really a lack of compassion, argument, and saying, where's the money supposed to come from, huh? Or something like that. That's more of a goofy voice. I don't know, Mickey. Doesn't abolishing student debt just sound like too extreme a position? Gosh, Goofy, you gotta cut that shit out. We we don't pay taxes, so you're not even paying the taxes anyway, Goofy. Oh gosh, Mickey. All right, how about that? How I think that's a real conversation that could be had. If somebody could do better voices, I'd like them to do better voices. But the fact of the matter is that if I am being forced to pay for my father's debts and there's no relief for it, why can't I make the argument that the debt should be abolished? These were made without my consent. I did not understand it. This isn't so I'm not arguing for a consent-based morality. My consent was based on false positions. All right, because most of these people who argue it believe in a consent-based morality. Um,
The fact of the matter is, there are so many things that the government could just stop doing that nobody actually wants them to do anyway, and that is not even their business to do.
yep.
And that would easily get us plenty of money to solve this issue.
Yep.
As somebody points out in the comments, we could stop bombing Palestine for 5 seconds to solve the loan problem. We don't need to drop bombs every day. We can make Disney pay for it.
Yeah,
Both
absolutely.
true. And unironically true, by the way. I would be happy making Disney pay for it.
Gosh, Mickey, they're coming after the gold I got in the basement. They'll never
It's
take
not
us
just
alive.
Walt's head. It's not just Walt's head that we keep in the freezer.
Right. So, this argument, the where is the money going to come from? It's already been paid. It's already out of your bank accounts. It's already been taken out of your little business. It's already been taken out of your gun resalement or whatever you have going for you. They raise taxes on you constantly. Put those taxes to work. I don't even want to respond to it. They put the response up. I don't even want to respond. I'm just going to downvote it. I'm going to downvote both of them. So, and the idea is, and the secondary argument to it is that what you believe for debt just goes away. Yes, even as the sins I have committed have been forgiven, such that they are gone. They are as far from the east as from the west. This is my preacher's boy coming out of me. As far as from the east and from the west is my sin. All right, from me, from God's sight. Satan, on the day of judgment, will come up and say, Ben, I am but a southern country, devil. Ben, he was lustful after the ladies. You should see what he get up to. He lied and he stole and he did all this stuff. But the answer is that I am under the blood of Christ. My sins are gone. The consequences for those sins are there. I'll get to that in a minute, Bradford. Good point. I would have gotten to it, but I'll get to it sooner. The consequences are there. The issues of addiction are there. The lies and the stealing and the punishments are there in the temporal film. But I will not go to hell for them. My debt has been forgiven. If somebody out there, this guy by the name of Justin, owes me $20. I know he owes me $20. I have not forgotten that he owes me $20. I am not going to kick down his door and go, hey, where's my $20? I have forgiven that debt. I have already paid the money The money has been spent. We went to lunch together because we were business guys. Back when I worked at the gym, the money has been spent. I'm not getting that money back unless I meet him and I joke, "Hey, buddy, don't you owe me a lunch?" "Oh yeah, bro, let's do it." Because he's that kind of guy. I'm not going to search after it. I'm not going to worry about it. I have forgiven the debt. If I see him again and it's like lunch sort of thing, I might joke about it. But if it doesn't happen, you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to worry about it. It's an opportunity. It's not a literal thing. We joked about it. It's part of our in jokes. So, so when people talk about the government tier of things, the government is a corporate entity that can uh, just forgive the debt, and not even by anything else than saying it does not need to be paid for. There's a story of an Irish landlord during the potato famine. He was a Christian man, and he knew that all of his tenants were in horrible debt to him. Evil, evil amounts of debt, and he could not bear it anymore. So this is what he said. He put up a sign, and everyone would be talking about this, so he didn't need to advertise it. But he said that I will forgive the debts of every single farmer who comes into my storefront. He rented a storefront. So he sat down. The morning starts, he opens it up, gets his tea, and he sits down and he waits. And he waits. Lunch passes, he waits. Afternoon, dinner passes. Sun's going down, that was the limit. Sun's going down, he would have to board up shop and the opportunity was lost. All of a sudden, this guy, this old farmer, the poorest farmer on his lot, comes running in. He's running for it, gunning for it. "Hey man, is it oh sir and begorra, is it too late?" And he says, "No, of course, come on in." And he writes it, and he takes the ledger of the debt, strikes it through, gives him a paper saying that all the debt owned by such and such has been forgiven. And the guy waves up and goes, "It's true, it's true. I've been forgiven of my debt." And he runs off. And of course, people didn't know if it was true or not, so of course they didn't go in. Which is stupid on them. They could have only benefited from it, but whatever. They were suspicious. It was an Englishman and they were Irish. They ran up to take advantage of it, but it was too late. The sun had set, the time was up. They could not do it. Even if you owe, even if you are owed massive amounts of money, you have spent the money, and if there's no chance in hell of you not getting it back, it is only a benefit to you to forgive the debt that is owed you. That's it. That's all. That's it. Brian Niemeyer. I'm sorry. Bradford says that Brian Niemeyer said, "Force the schools to suck it up by seizing endowments." Yes.
Yeah, I've said something like that as well.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Rick Farwell says they don't have a problem with how are we going to pay for it when they get us into neocon adventures. Oh no, it's Dora Bush. Dora, no wars in Iraq. No wars in Iraq. No wars in Iraq. Ah, dang it. Uh, Megabuster Shepard says every politician should be made to dig ditches and do road work ad infinitum in the new order. Sure, I also dream of things, and I think we both dream of Ponyville sometimes, Megabuster Shepard, in the dark of night when things get too busy for us. I think Ponyville is more likely. We just need a scientist mad enough to do it. So, what would you say would be the next stupidest argument, Anthony?
what would I say is the next stupidest argument?
Yep.
Uh, to be honest with you, I think the idea is that you see, I'm not sure if I have an idea of what the stupidest arguments are, except that I think what it is, you see millennials in the news as the ones who are causing all of these problems. They're the ones who are asking for safe spaces, protesting on college campuses, and things like that. This is the actual flaw of the generation. The thing about this, though, is that the reason that they're doing it is because of number one, the debt. Number two, we've been lied to our entire lives, and we have nobody that we could trust, and nobody we could count on. So, of course, with no support system whatsoever, it makes us look weak. Yes, we are weak. We have nobody who we can rely on but ourselves. Everybody else is either trying to take advantage of us, make us buy things, or they are just straight up lying to us and trying to grift us out of our money, which in a way are really the same thing, aren't they?
Yep.
So when you see millennials are the ones who want safe space, millennials are the ones who believe in transgenderism and whatever. Just remember that the reason is because we have absolutely nothing mooring us in place. All of these people don't have the church behind them, and the church betrayed them as well,
Yep.
for
Oh
that
yeah.
matter. The church betrayed them, both Catholic and Protestant. Uh, so you can't trust them. With nobody who you can trust, then yeah, you're going to start playing the eternal victim because nobody else is acknowledging that you're a victim. When obviously you've been victimized, but nobody's going to mention the real problem. And I get it. I get why people are mad at millennials. As well they should be, but we are not the root of the problem. The one thing that would help the most is literally just to say, yeah, you're right. You've been screwed over. I don't know what to do about it, but here's what I am doing.
Yep.
XYZ. That would actually make a huge difference.
Like.
Also, the church actually helping. For example, if the church actually, let's say that they use some of their money to set up a fund to help pay off loans. Holy crap, that would be better use of church funds, money, and resources than any other charity out there right now. Literally any of them in America, specifically.
Yep. I could see that. That it would be. It would. There's like no downside to it because you know I'm not seeing
It's
much.
the right thing to do anyway, and it
Yeah.
will bring people to Christ. Because
Yep.
they will see, oh wow, you really do believe in that forgive us your debts as we forgive our debtors business.
Yep. Like it's.
And sure, you might have to, like, maybe you attach conditions to it. I am all for that. But that isn't the point. The point is that they're not even addressing the problem. They're not even acknowledging the problem. They're just insulting people.
Like if.
Yeah, Megabus or Shepherd is. I've heard they're just lazy and get a real job. Right.
Yeah. So.
Nobody is lazy. Like that's the other thing. So there's your answer. What's the argument that I'm tired of hearing? They just don't want. They want other people to pay off their debts. They just don't want to pay it off themselves or take responsibility. Here's the truth. I have never, not once in my entire life, and anybody that I've known, ever met a person who did not want to pay off their debts.
Yep.
Literally never. Dozens of people,
Yep.
everybody in high school, every single one of them wanted to pay off their debts. They actually couldn't. They could not. They physically could not pay off the debts. Someone mentioned I went 6 years, I paid it off in 12 years, and 6 of them I spent as a fry cook. 6 years as are you insane? If I spent 6 years as a fry cook, in those 6 years, my debts would skyrocket as interest accrued.
Yep. Like, and where were you
It doesn't
working as
work
a
that
fry
way
cook?
anymore. You live in a different world.
Yep. Like, Outback Steakhouse pays $10 to $12 an hour for their fried cook. Like, you think, or at least they did a couple years ago. Like that's not enough. That wasn't enough. A couple years ago. Like it's working 60 hours a week over a hot stove for nothing, less than nothing. Next to drug addicts and literally people who will overdose on you the second you turn your back on them. Like it's 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 um it's horrible. It is a loveless thing to say to people. But it's like, hey, how'd you pay off your debts? I used my grandfather's inheritance, and I shouldn't have. The people who I speak to who go, I don't want to pay off my debts, have been like, like they haven't talked to me about considering it because I don't know anything about finances. I'm not a finance guy. I'm not an accountant. And they have said, well, I can't do this. Well, too bad. And then they make a joke out of it because how else are you going to deal with it? It's soul deadening to have the idea that I will never be free of debt as one of the main tenets of your life. It's soul rotting. The idea that will be forever a debt slave and you can only hope that it is forgiven because otherwise it's not going to work. Like Ben, what did you do? I had to give up an inheritance. Like that's it. That's it. I literally born to poverty, had poverty, and I gave up a chance to not be impoverished to pay off my debts. That's it. I didn't. It's not like I was great with the money otherwise, but it's like wasting it would have brought me more benefits than paying off my debts. Now, there was one loan company that offered me a zero interest loan for impoverished cases like myself, who also had good grades. Um, so I paid that one off, and I don't regret that one actually. But like when I was working at different places, I was working, 40 to 50 hours a week at a place, and I was a manager. I've been a manager in more jobs than I care to remember. Right? I just get the positions. They don't come with money like they used to. It's not nearly as good as people think it was or for these places are, because most of the places for people who don't have a STEM degree are quite frankly, horrible, like
Not to
barely.
mention, STEM degrees get you less than you think too. What a
Yep.
STEM degree does is gets you a place at the table, in the sense that you now have the opportunity to maybe be considered for an entry level job. You are by no means guaranteed one
Yep.
because the degree has been devalued, which is another problem with this, by the way. Say what you want about if you were screwed or not screwed into it. The degree has factually been devalued. This is a thing that you certainly can't blame the millennials for. We're not the ones who set the prices.
Yep. I know a guy who's probably the smartest person I've ever met in person. In person specifically, he's of the same class of intellect as Owen Benjamin and Vox Day. He makes less than six figures at a metallurgy company where in real terms he should be making like 6 to 7 figures, and could if he was a little bit more ambitious with his degree. But he kind of likes living where he does, so he's like, I'm like, okay. Like if and by the way, that assumes that the world's all about money, which it isn't. We have some comments here. Kind of, I kind of had an interesting idea. Tell me if it's dumb or not. Loan debts for infrastructure help repair the declining infrastructure of America in return for debt forgiveness. Uh, you'd have to flesh that out for me more. But if it's what I think it is, it sounds all right. Like if you labor and then you earn like $1,000 off your student loan debt for like 10 hours of work, I could see that. All those real jobs don't pay good
To be
wages.
honest, that's probably too fast.
Sure,
10 hours is a single day of work, and $1,000 is not a small amount for one day.
sure,
But I get your point.
but like if I was so my standard of rate is $25 an hour. I earn $25 an hour doing yard work. That's my standard of rate. It's not realistic all the time, but it works. All those real Bradford Walker says all those real jobs don't pay good wages due to the oversupply of labor via massive immigration, and then the severe in-group networking formed to cope with that compounds the issue. I have dealt with that most of my life. I have a problem where I have issues joining up with groups. I just don't have that desire. I don't need to be social with people. I'm very introverted. I don't have that in group preference. And there's also that in group preference of the Indians like to hire other Indians, and the Chinese hire other Chinese. The Jews hire other Jews. Like there's nobody who doesn't do that except the whites and some blacks who have really bought into it. The Vietnamese English, the teaching English in other Asian countries, they hire white people because they are white and they can speak English well. They don't even care if you can speak Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese. They don't care one whit. They only care that you are white and that you speak English. You are not being hired for your skills. You are being hired because you have the skin tone they like. It's everyone else is doing it. We're not, and it has ruined a lot of our children. And it's ruined job rates, it's ruined money, it's ruined the ability to pay off our loans. The real job is a screw job because most there is none and never will be one. You know, I have held jobs in career in management positions. I've ruined some of them, others were ruined for me. You know, none of them paid well. my management job, where I was probably the third most important operations manager in the company, paid me less than 30,000 a year, and I tried to negotiate that up. The it's and I ruined that one for myself, just so you guys know. And they were actually going to low key bring down our wages by moving us to an hourly thing and then capping our hours. They haven't even replaced me when they fired me. Let me quit. Uh, Rick Farwell says the whole college debt thing makes me think of Ezra Powers Pound's Usura.
Uh,
Uh,
well, and Aaron VT recommends the Noonday Devil. I just looked it up. It actually does look good. I might pick it up.
Sweet. Uh,
It's written by John Charles Nault, who is an abbot at the abbot of San Juan Drill. It says. I can barely read the cover, what it says there, but basically it identifies the main spiritual sickness of the millennial generation as sloth, but he uses the older term acedia because sloth is now misleading. It does not mean laziness. It's a gloomy combination of weariness, sadness, and a lack of purposefulness. It robs a person of his capacity for joy and leaves him feeling empty or void of meaning. Yes, that is it exactly.
yep.
Uh, I might actually pick up that book now.
That sounds good. It's a great recommendation, Aaron. Thank you. The Bradford Walker and
It's
Megabus of Shepherd.
expensive. Holy crap, that's expensive. $12.99 for the Kindle book.
Ugh. Just buy the real
That's
edition.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Like I dig that they
No, I
have
want to read it
replaced.
now. I just bought it. I want to read it now, so I'm buying it now.
You have Amazon Prime, don't you?
No, of course not.
Oh, huh, huh. Well, all right then. Look at you.
I want to get the book though. It
That's
looks
fair.
good. Looks like I'd enjoy it.
Ooh. And the thing is that technically I'm like the so 89 is kind of the barrier between Gen Y and millennials. Like I've got Gen Y streaks through me, but the thing is that Gen Y got screwed over too. Like there isn't a generation from Gen Y to Zoomers.
Every generation's been screwed over to some extent, but the thing is, the baby boomers were the last ones to have it better than their parents.
Yep. One of the things that drive me is the idea of how can I make things, better than my parents. And my solution is literally leave the country, go to a third world country and take a job that is not at all reliant on skill or anything other than some traits, but I'll be treated better in that than the management jobs I've had. Like that's not a healthy reaction to it. Going, the grass isn't green here shouldn't be it when they've poured weed killer on the lawn and then, put in non native plants, which is a horrible thing to do to anybody. I just hate boomers.
I just hate boomers, man. So yeah, here's the thing though. I want to point this out that as we say we hate boomers, we're at the very least open about it. We don't feel sorry for the poor benighted boomers whose real problem is how weak they are. No, we hate boomers.
Yep.
Uh, the faux paternalistic moralizing to the millennial generation is much worse. I enjoy the uh, identification of the issue with spiritual sloth.
Yep.
I like the term acedia because sloth does give the wrong impression in the modern day,
Yeah.
and acedia is the older term for it. So the identification of our habitual sin with acedia makes perfect sense.
Yep. And it's like I've got hope for my future. I've got desires and goals that I'm going to work for. Even though I view myself as, a quasi victim of things to do with this nature, I it's that's just how it is. Like it's the choices that were made. I can be angry about it, but that doesn't mean I have to despair about it and go, "Oh, there's no hope. I will merely, eat the bugs and live in the tube." Doing something stupid.
Live in the pod.
Live in the pod. Thank you. I keep saying tube, but I mean pod. But it might as well be a tube. It might as well. You know, and I know a lot of millennials who are starting their own businesses and such like, or who are living their best life, working for the forestry department, doing this, doing that, urban professional types, who are making it. You can make it, but you know, going to people who aren't making it and saying, "Why don't you swim? The Titanic's over there." Like it doesn't work. It's evil. It's not.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm so out of patience for that attitude now.
Yep.
Like, you mentioned I was pretty pissed off in this comment section. And the reason I was pretty pissed off is actually partially because I normally agree with these people. I see it as a major blind spot, the lack of compassion and the lack of Christian charity for people who I expect to have compassion and charity.
Yep.
But besides that, as far as uh
You're
as far as my own life goes, so I'm a millennial, and I don't talk about my personal life on the show, and I'm going to keep that up. So I'm going to talk about it in very general terms. I made my own mistakes and had to come and made my own decisions that left me in the position where I am today. And I'm working my way up in the world, and things are improving, but slowly. I do not have any bitterness at where I am in the world right now, even though it seems like it. My anger is not actually at myself specifically. I made my own mistakes. The bed that I am in, I need to lie in, and I will get out of it when I get out of it, if that makes sense. To be vague in what I am describing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I made my own mistakes. I had to overcome them in my own way, and I am where I am. Hopefully, things are going to continue getting better in the future. In a strange way, 2020, in a lot of ways, was actually a fantastic year for me. Uh, and in other ways, it was terrible, just like everybody else. But ultimately, I can only look at my life and say that it's heading in a generally positive direction, though it's certainly at a crossroads at the moment. We will see what happens during the summer and over the course of the end of the year. But I am not mad on behalf of myself. As far as my own debt goes, I take responsibility for it. I made mistakes that led me to this point. I also made decisions I don't necessarily consider mistakes that led me to this point, and either way, I need to live with it. However, what I do get angry at is people who try and tell me that it isn't somehow a thing, that it's not a problem for me to be concerned with. Of course it is, and I'm dealing with it. I am a Catholic, I am a Christian, I am a son of Jesus Christ, and that is how I cope because that's how everybody copes in a fallen world. Not everybody has gotten there. It took me a while to get there. It was not easy for me to get there, and it wasn't something that happened instantaneously. Especially and I came with a lot of advantages, advantages that a lot of millennials don't have. And it still took me a while to get there, and I'm still crawling my way up. Now, do I have anything to complain about? No, not really. I am crawling my way up. It's happening. I can do it. I have faith in God, I have faith in Christ, and I'm making improvements in my life and how I live and what I do, and things are going to be fine in the long run. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the millennials and people who I grew up with didn't have any of these supposed advantages that I do, and they don't have Christ to fall back on. If they did, they wouldn't trust it. And I can't really blame them. I mean, I can blame them to an extent because, of course, everybody is at least partially culpable, but I can't totally blame them for it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I have my own debt that I'm going to be trapped under for a long time, but I know why I'm under it, and I know what I need to do, and I know what I need to do in the future. And I trust in God, and I trust in God and Jesus Christ, and I tried to serve Him. And in knowing that, I know that the future will ultimately work out because God promises it will. Not in a Joel Osteen kind of way. Work out might mean martyrdom, but that I am ultimately making the decisions that will lead me to a better relationship with God. If that makes some sort of sense. That's the
Yep.
compass that I'm using. That's the compass that every millennial needs, but we don't have compasses.
Yep.
And it was not until 2018 that I got that compass. And before that point, acedia was a great term for what I had. In fact, thinking about it and looking back at my life, that is 100% the defining sin of it is acedia. And it beat me down for a long time, and it's only through the mercy of God that I was able to get out of it at all, and I was able to crawl my way up.
Excellent.
Megabuster Shepherd says Babylon rises and Babylon falls, such as the world. Yeah. Of course, Ben and I, being the conspiracy theorists that we are worried that we're about to see the apocalypse happen because of the not vaccines.
Yeah. So
So,
my opinion on it is that
crossing my fingers on that.
right. Like my opinion of it is that it'll happen when God wants, but not before. But I'm saying that the signs are there. More than a few of the signs are there, and it's like, oh, I don't know. I'm giving this thing the stink eye. It's like,
Now, I'm not going to talk to anybody about the not vaccines, but Ben and I, being the crazy Christian conspiracy theorists that we are both skeptical.
oh yeah. Megabuster Shepherd says, I wonder if Europeans feel the same as Americans, millennials. I know they have better social safety nets, but the thing is that makes them worse off. Bradford Walker, and I'll explain that in a second. He says the Canadians I run into are just as mad and overcome as Acacia. What is it again? As
Acedia?
Acedia. Thank you. Their safety net is making things worse to do what's that paid for. Basically, yes. Uh, the thing with the
Yeah,
safety,
I think it just auto corrected it to Acacia.
yeah. The thing with like safety nets is that they can help and they can hinder. So the fact that they have a safety net is good because it means that at least things won't get as bad as they could when America starts having issues. But at the same time, it's going to be worse in other ways because the safety nets don't allow for a certain amount of practicality. Megabuster Shepherd's got to wait for the third temple for me to pass judgment. They talk about it every now and then. Like it's a thing people talk about. And it's like, I don't like this, guys. And also, what is temple? Like, is it literal or figurative? In this case, it could be. No, I'm kidding. It's probably literal, but um, you know,
Nice.
uh, yeah. So for Europeans, a lot of them like there's less God there than we have here, and that's their biggest problem. Um, they don't have God like we Americans can have religion. You know, Europe has become very anti-Christian, and while there are some places like Austria, Hungary, and Poland, especially based Poland, who has declared Christ the King again in a couple years ago, I think. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who I give Poland a hard time, but why not? Uh, besides those places, there's there's a very strong anti-Christian bias. The Anglican Church is fallen. It is a fallen church. It is completely cold. There are some places that still have a little bit of Christ in them because that's always how it happens. But if I have a choice between,
And frankly, most of them are leaving for the Catholic Church now with the
yep,
Anglican Ordinariate.
yep. So like a lot of high church Protestants are going back to Catholicism, but from my perspective, they were always a little too Catholic anyway. Um, places in China are growing with Christians, places in Protestant and Catholic. You know, these things are growing in some places, but in places like Europe, it is completely falling apart. That Megabuster Shepherd, that sounds like a millennial nonsense to me, or post tribulation nonsense to me. I am a pre-trib rapturist, pre-trib gangster rapturist, if you will, and that's what we stand for in this stream. Uh,
Uh,
preaching
I
against their
don't
doctrine.
really have a position on it. I don't know what's going to happen.
So it's one of those things where like I do it more because I believe the verses about so orthodoxy is expanding, quote unquote, but it's mostly memes. It is not nearly expanding as people think it is. It is mostly public figures going for it, and I don't trust a public figure's confession of faith as far as I can throw them. They have to
As
live.
well, you should not.
So, like, if Gavin McGinnis or something like that does something with Christians or whatever, it doesn't work. The reason why I believe Rusha and Milo are genuine is because they call upon Christ and admit how degenerate they are. They were and are. But, like, Rusha's repudiated everything that ever got him money and success and fame, and Milo hasn't done the same, but he's in the similar boat. He is apparently throwing his ring, which marked his marriage to his husband, into a literal volcano. It's a stunt, but it's a stunt I can respect. Um, I hope Saint Michael comes back in a mech. Oh, me too. Me too. Uh, because
Great. Now we got to write that story, Ben.
yeah, yeah. The I actually have a story. I think it was in that Hope anthology that A.M. Freeman did for that one chick who had that one disease. I can't remember, something about her bones not working right. I don't know, but it's been years. It's been like 2 years. Uh, but basically, I had a guy who was modeled after millennials who had a mech and he lost his battle. And he actually, now that I am, so I've spoken this and you've introduced the concept to me, he was dealing with acedia, despair and depression and stuff like that. What's the point of fighting on? And must be given back his courage to lead England against the alien invaders. Bradford Walker goes, "Wait for it." Hyde Star Knight notes, "Oh, we're waiting, Bradford. I'm waiting for that every day." I just go, is it today as I'm brushing my teeth? Oh, I'm kidding. I don't brush my teeth in the mornings.
Amazing.
What do you guys talk about? Well, not brushing your teeth in the mornings. So there are some decent arguments about the millennial issue. But a lot of it is more or less countering, their sin issues. Their
All
acedia.
right. So here's the problem: the decent arguments about the millennial issue.
Yeah,
There are no decent arguments.
there are no decent arguments. Anthony cut off on me.
Real issue is that millennials were brought up to think. Ben, no, I'm back.
All right.
What I was saying is,
Yeah.
uh, the problem with there are decent arguments on the millennial issue is that there are no decent arguments uh that don't acknowledge that there is an issue, if
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
So what I mean is, if your argument is that actually there is no problem, the real issue was that millennials were growing up, were given participation trophies, and they are and they're lazy, and that we didn't teach them how to how to deal with disappointment. I don't take you seriously. You have nothing substantial to add. You haven't even noticed the problem. You're not part of the discussion. You're talking about you don't know you just don't know what you're talking about. I don't even mean it to be mean. You clearly have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know what the issue is. You don't know why millennials are acting the way they do. You don't know that there is an issue. What I am interested in is people who go, so there is clearly a problem among millennials, even if the problem is just the spiritual sickness, acedia. How can we fix it? The answer is to bring people back to Christ, but then how do we do that?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't really have an answer.
That that's a whole thing to it, but a lot of it is just not lying. about things and opportunities and stuff like that.
Right.
Like,
The first step will be not lying to millennials, not gaslighting the millennials.
yep,
I see it among my friends all the time. Even leftist friends from high school who are leftists are saying essentially a lot of the same things I am, in that they're friggin' tired of people mocking millennials. And
yep,
they're absolutely right. Like, the thing about millennials who get mad at the way we're being talked about, like, that is the natural and reasonable response to being insulted. So, like, yeah, they're mad. I don't know what you were expecting exactly. You just called them lazy.
yep. When they're literally running a microbrew out of their house and like DJing on the weekends and doing other piecemeal jobs. Like I know a lot of people who do stuff like that, piecemeal jobs. I do piecemeal jobs. Why?
I see people go like, well, why don't you move to Texas and like work in the oil fields? Like, sure, you could do that. So, first off, every millennial can't do that. I mean, literally can't, because there just aren't enough jobs for that.
Yep.
But even besides that, that just goes to like, and then you get to, well, then why are you abandoning the arts? Well, because you're basically telling us that you either need to be doing something straightforwardly practical or starve.
Yep.
That's not a real answer. That's not a good answer.
And
You know,
I will
add to the act. Go ahead.
and I'll be very clear here. I would rather murder boomers and paint the walls red with my stories than ever give up the arts. It is not happening. It's never happening. It is too much to my character that I am a writer. That for me to ever give it up in any way, shape, or form. And I will go to the grave with that. Like that will be written on my grave. Screw boomers. They're swinging the electric. Well, no, they swinging the gas. Switch. What's your last words? Fuck boomers. I did
I could
nothing
see that.
wrong. Pull the switch, boomer.
The No, the last words are, the Unabomber's only issue was being born at the wrong time.
uh, History will vindicate Ted Kaczynski. Bark, bark. No, dog, no. That's a talking dog. What does it talk about? Bark, bark. History will vindicate Ted Kaczynski.
Hey, 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 listen up. Want to hear a secret?
Yeah.
The best historical analog for Ted Kaczynski is John Brown.
Ooh, that's spicy.
Tell your friends.
But not the glowy ones who are showing up these days. Just don't do it. Because like honestly, like anyone who joins a militia is stupid. Like they're so full of police and feddies and stuff like that it's just stupid. Don't do that. I saw a thing where it's like, wow, got some shooting in today, trad guys. Wow, I didn't know. Somebody just as a joke goes, wow, I didn't know what the shooting gallery in Langley looked like, and then the account deleted itself.
That's pretty funny.
So talking about this stuff, we have had some comments. Um, Ben, I got Death Stranding. You convinced me. Absolutely, Death Stranding is better than people say, but it's rougher than people say too. Bar One Studio says guitar instruments. Let's flood every job market. Yay! Fully expect labor mobility to disappear by 2050. Oh, sooner. Uh, yes. I've got my plans. I'm not going to talk about them here because they're kind of stupid, and I haven't thought about them too hard yet. Because we're working on that Pinkerton's finale. Yeah.
How have you not thought about it too hard yet, man? You've been talking about this for months now.
Okay, fine. Maybe I've thought about it very hard. But I don't want that one chick who probably works for the FBI and is a dude to know about him. But basically, in the next 8 years, choose where you want to live forever. Megamuffin
Yeah,
Shepherd says,
that's true.
I could disappear for 6 months in an oil rig. I actually tried. It's harder than you think, and you have to live in Texas. And I wasn't willing
Well,
to.
yeah.
Like, but, like, I didn't have money for it at the time. So instead, I worked Quick Trip. Uh, Aaron BT says the only way to bring people to Christ is to be a saint. The only thing that ever works. The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. It was ever thus. And that is true. But at the same time, I would like to remind people that Arius, who got bitch slapped by St. Nicholas, was also of the church. And during times of persecution too, which is wild. But I think he was a Donatist, which kind of just paid the toll and, pretended to be pro Diocletian. I'm not sure though. Don't quote me on that. Bradford Walker says, the sooner than you think, oh, you just move will end when the border's shut. Yep. I do believe that English will remain the trade language, which is the only...
It's too convenient to be otherwise.
It's too convenient. That's the only reason. If I thought that English would stop being the trade language, I would not move to Vietnam and teach English. I wouldn't do it. There would be no market. It would be bad. Rainbow Mega Buster Shepherd says, my last words, Rainbow is still best pony, and my hands wrapped around your throat. I will respond, Applejack is best pony. Bradford Walker, don't join militias. Join grilling clubs. Absolutely. I just want to grill, guys. I've been thinking about that a lot, actually. I want to learn how to grill properly. Join hiking clubs. Join woodworking clubs. Join the Roman Legion. Ave Caesar. I just want to go north in the lake and stay there. If I can't relocate abroad, there's not many foreign countries I consider living in anymore. That's true. Like, there's a lot of things that are about to be lost that we will wish we had. The goal is to find yourself in a position where, one, you can survive it in comfort, or survive it without being raided by, the ATF and your dog gets shot, or two, a place that will likely survive and thrive in it. China, I do not believe, will thrive as well as people think it will, but I know Vietnam will.
So I mentioned this to you before and in private, but I actually think that China may surprise you.
Sure. I'm willing to be
because,
surprised.
as Ryan Niemeyer has been pointing out for a long time, it's going to be the largest Christian. So I actually think there is a non-zero chance we may see like a vast conversion of China.
Oh yeah, I think so. So this is going to sound probably very poor, but they have a huge boomer population. They call them evil aunts and uncles. But basically, what's going to happen is that they're going to die off, and it's just going to be huge. Those evil aunts and uncles have the unfortunate distinction of being born during starvation, but being passed over during the current prosperity. So, they're kind of very vindictive. Like, when you see stories of people, like, eating shellfish from nature preserves that are no fish zones, it's them. You know, those are the class stereotype of people who do that. Mega Mustard Shepherd says, an Applejack fan, nice, don't see too many of those. I don't get it. Like, she is a trad pony. She is, family oriented, exercises, owns her own businesses. Like, it's like she's got the whole package. Anyway, Barwin Studio says, Ave salad with creamy dressing. Yes, Ave creamy dressing. Bradford Walker says, China's demographic collapse ends its imperial ambitions. So I will say that its imperial nature will collapse, and they might have a warring period, but I could see Anthony's point of it being a surprise. Yeah, China has a substantial Christian population, and as time goes on, and as the demographics collapse or reform or whatever, things will change. Christians are notoriously fantastic at breeding, and having kids that are worth a damn after breeding. So it's there. The point is that we're two millennials, a Gen Yer and a millennial, who are literally sitting here. We have a growing, soon to be successful, God willing, show called Pinkerton's Ghosts. We have produced content. We have worked on this. We have Sweat, blood, tears, mostly my blood and tears, but we have sweat, blood, and tears in it. Uh, we have success. Anthony has seen success in his professional ambitions. I have seen success in what I've achieved for myself. I've seen
Right. We're still in the early stages of what we both would consider success, but we're also both moving in the right direction, I think is the best way to put it.
yep. I'm gonna go to Vietnam. My goal isn't just to make money, baby, and sleep around. It's to find somebody I could spend my life with and have kids with. Not wanting at least 5 kids is a deal breaker.
I just saw a Full Metal Jacket. Where was it? Me so horny, love me long time,
It's
which is in
horrible,
Vietnam, which is in Vietnam. So
right? It's not a thing. Like I had a guy who would joke about that, and he's just had his first kid, and he is the most blasphemous son of a bitch I know. I had to unblock him so I could do some English teaching group job things, but I hate having him unblocked. Uh, there's a picture of like Jesus fighting a furry, and I'm like, don't worry, guys. Even if Jesus dies, he'll rise again on the third day, to save us from the furry menace. And then he made a joke about Jesus screwing the furry to death, and like, what the heck, dude? What's wrong with you? Um, he's just evil, and I don't know what happened to him. Uh, Christian Chinese space empire. So one of the things I'm planning on doing is writing novels from a Vietnamese perspective with space travel, adventure, girls, pulp fiction, right? Having somebody translate it to Vietnamese and then selling it as if it's a Vietnamese product just to get them interested in
that's pretty
space.
funny.
China has a large overbalance in males due to one child policy in the 60s and the 70s. So one child actually lasted in practical terms, not literal terms, but in practical terms until recently, actually, within my lifetime. I need to speak louder. I am sorry for that. Let me just double check my volume. But yeah. So everything is at 100%. I do check my volume. Oh, not at 100%. There we go. My volume does go down sometimes and I can't control it. My apologies. Also, I have a cold. So the one child policy is creating a demographic collapse scenario, and it's worse than America's. It's way worse than America's. Because
Oh, it's orders of magnitude worse, which is
orders of
saying something because
we're
we're
bad.
in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, like we are not in replacement tier at all. The only reason we look like it on paper is because of immigration. But
But China is a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's one of the things I actually disagree with Vox Day about, and I know, to be fair, I noticed that his commenters aren't entirely in agree with him on his whole, China's going to be the future and they could totally take down America thing. Like, they might be able to right now,
right,
but it's smoke and mirrors and it's not going to last long at all. And that's not to say America's in good shape. It's just that China is very much a paper tiger.
yep. It has been known as a paper tiger to serious economists and historians for since the 1980s. Sure, maybe they could do something these days, but it is highly unlikely. Um, India actually has a better chance of really pulling it out than China does.
Yeah, Megabuster Shepherd says John C. Wright's daughter was adopted from China, right? Yeah, she was.
Yep.
Ping Ping, I believe, if I'm remembering the name right.
Yeah, it's Ping Ping, right? Uh, I haven't really talked to her because she kind of like stays away from the author friends, and I don't blame her. But
Yeah, they're pretty weird.
yeah, they're pretty weird. And it's weird, and they're like sucking up to dad. What's up with this? Um, I agree. China is a paper tiger. Vietnam bloodied their nose. Yeah. So like Vietnam has actually put up with no crap from China, and part of it is economics. They know that they can, in practical terms, be crushed, but they also like won against America in its prime. So it's more like, oh, so we got to take down this superpower too. Let's go, bro. Let's go. Let's do it. We're
Honestly, Vietnam is pretty badass.
yeah, like they view it as a mark of pride. Like they love Americans, right? They genuinely enjoy Americans. We're big, we're loud, we're obnoxious, and we're rich, and we like to buy things, and we're friendly. And it's like we had a war, but it wasn't an ugly war in the sense of atrocities committed. There were the usual atrocities, but like it wasn't as ugly as say World War I, right? And they view it as a mark of pride. They have their things about it, and they love telling the stories of them, getting advantage on the Americans. Like they have Victory Day. They have like 3 different public holidays that's just about them winning the Vietnam War. Among other things. And they, I don't care. That wasn't my war. I wasn't born during that time. It was kind of a dumb war to begin with. Like all this stuff. Sure, they could take down China too. They could fight it out. But then what
I
happens?
mean,
They
yeah, to be honest, I don't really have an opinion on the Vietnam War for the simple reason that I haven't done enough research into it.
yeah,
Uh, like, it's easy that, there are so many hot takes on the Vietnam War that I don't really feel qualified to give one.
yep. Like they're just as legitimate as veterans as any other war and so on and so forth. But it's like, you know, eh, I don't have
Like,
a
was the war justified? What level was it justified? How long should we have been there? I actually don't know the answer to any of those questions.
yep,
And I'm not going, I think that that's actually kind of a problem. I'm not going to pretend I do. I haven't looked into it. Like, I'm not even saying that we should have or shouldn't have been there. I literally just don't know.
yep. So it's like if they want to go someone wants to go another round with the superpower embarrassing world champs, and the China will not be able to bear an embarrassment like we bore an embarrassment because they have face culture something fierce. Um, that's up to them. They could try. Uh, what's more is that why would China ruin a valuable economic relationship with Vietnam? Like Vietnam produces a lot of goods for China. A lot of things get sold in Vietnam from China. Now, some of that is just bad. Like they had a big scandal about baby formula, where basically babies were being poisoned because Chinese companies didn't care about pure baby powder. Like it's now keep in mind, if you can do breast milk, do breast milk. Like just straight up, there's no healthy way to give artificial stuff to your baby. It's just not gonna happen. But it's like people died. I had a guy who a lot of people died. I had a guy who was a bodyguard, like not really a bodyguard, but he just stood there and looked good in a suit, and he was this big, huge white guy. And the guy hired him. Is like, just look intimidating, make it look like I'm a big rich man, so I get power over my business deals. It's like the amount of cutthroat stuff is in there is absolutely amazing, and something that we can't really understand, but it's absolutely fantastic. Afghans beating Americans, sure, in the sense of the CIA trained them well.
Nice.
That's it. That's all I got. Oh, my character died. Bullying its neighbors, yeah. Um, stay at 100%. What's wrong with you? Anyway, I wonder if the Afghans will have holidays and how about how they beat the America. Yeah, I mean they could, but that might be haram or something. I don't know. But yeah, like this is the world that we're talking. We're still talking about millennials and indirectly.
Uh, Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Oh,
I just want to point out that If God Real is the best page on Facebook currently. If God Real. So it's just this guy who quotes cringe quotes where if God Real, a Y and then something cringe. And that's the whole page. And it's hilarious. So he has a post, some link to, I don't even know who this person is. He looks like a generic celebrity. He says, when we landed on the moon, that was the point. God should have come up and said hello. Because if you invent some creatures, put them on the blue one, they make it to the gray one, you turn up and say, well done. And if God real, why no IRL Xbox achievements? I, I found that really funny.
Yep. All right. So
If God real is a great channel. Anyway, go back to your actually helpful,
that was pretty.
relevant response
That was
to the
pretty.
topic.
That was pretty fantastic. So I'm done with Risk of Rain for the night. So this is the world we're talking about. Like, we're talking about the world. Like, various places are going under, various places are on the rise, maybe. Russia still exists, and it will continue to exist. Why? No one really knows why Russia continues to exist as it does, but it exists. The European Union's falling apart slowly but surely. Various places are claiming to be for Christ. Other places are claiming to be against Christ. You know, um, it's just a whole bunch of things are happening, and it's not stable. It's not even like the stability of post World War II that the Boomers grew up in, were born in. It's this weird mix of like everything going down, but at the same time we have better and more things than before. Like, and they've lost the heart and soul of their own nation. There is no moral argument for me not to take a Vietnamese wife right now. Maybe there was, 30, 50 years ago, if I was born a boomer. Heaven forbid. Inshallah, brothers. But thou hast been born a boomer. Allah forbid. Virgin America Militia versus Chad Buddies and Toyotas. Why haven't I got my Toyota? I want my Toyota. I want my RPG. I want my AK 47. And I want my $1,000,000 in a pallet in a Ford F 150 delivered at night by a dude who won't speak. Russia wisely is confining itself to its traditional sphere of influence. Putin is a hard man, and he has almost certainly killed people, but uh, he is a Russian leader to the core, and he will serve Russia well, and has already done so. Um, like, it's we got to change with the times. We got to turn with the times. We got to be willing to open ourselves to the times. And those people who will mock people like me and others to do so may sit on a Webster's dictionary and spin. The whole thing is ridiculous. We are not in the America that once existed. We are not in the ideal America. My family has been in America for 350 to 400 years, straight up, before the country even existed as a thing. If anyone should feel connected to the country, it should be me. It should be me to the core. But I am not connected. I should be. I should have all the benefits of those things as an inheritance, as a big globe of what once was, and it should have been handed to me just like I would hand it to my kids. But it wasn't. And honestly, the whole world's suffering. Cultures are dying out. There might be a weird plague that wiped out whatever population took the not vaccine. There's all these different things that are happening. Supposedly, according to the 300 and the weird population things people talk about, conspiracy theorists like to talk about, Asia and Japan will mostly be spared because they already obey the world order or something, or are willing participants. So it's like, okay, you guys are weird. Stop it with your conspiracy theories. But like, it's. Bradford Walker says, "I am not connected to this country that calls itself America. I don't know what it is, but it's not my country," and that is absolutely true.
That was one of the impetus behind Pinkerton's Ghost. It's there in the background, and I think it's subtle, though maybe I'll lean more into it in later seasons. But the idea behind Pinkerton's Ghost is also about sort of documenting the death of America, in a sense,
In a
or the
spiritual
decline
sense.
of America.
Yep.
Right, in a spiritual sense. America is spiritually, if not dead, dying, and dying rapidly. And in Pinkerton's Ghost, the Pinkertons need to navigate this new landscape. Uh, and it's somewhat subtle, I think. In my part, I have stories take place in the inner city where every cop is corrupt and everybody is and everybody is miserable and poor. I have stories take place on the boardwalk, and I mentioned that the boardwalk is poor and it's no longer popular, and storefronts are missing and things are dying in that way. You know, stuff like that. So it's a subtle edge, it's a subtle theme in Pinkerton's Ghost, but it's definitely there. And I actually think I may try and make it a little bit more explicit in later seasons because for example, the Pine Barrens being a major part of the story in season one. They're literally the Pine Barrens are one of the weirdest places in the whole country and arguably the world. It's literally this massive, million acre forest sitting smack dab in the middle of the state of New Jersey. We are the most densely populated state in the country, and there are areas of the Pine Barrens where the population density is literally one person per square mile, which is just nuts. Uh, so but the whole idea that the Pine Barrens is also dying, sure now they're national, they have them reserved as national parks and things, but it's certainly not the same thing. There used to be like a whole subculture of people there called the Pineys, and now they're almost entirely gone. The only ones left are old men who occasionally get contacted by reporters who want to interview them because they're the last of the Pineys and they're annoyed by it. You could actually read those articles; they're kind of funny. It's literally, it's like they're these old men who've lived in the Pine Barrens since I don't know, the 50s or 60s or something, and occasionally some guy wrote a book on like culture in the Pine Barrens. So every now and then they'll have reporters go up and interview them about what it's like to be like the last of the Pineys, and they'll be like, I don't fucking know. I'm just a guy. Leave me alone. Stop bothering me. They're like, so you're the last. Is your culture dying? And they're like, we didn't really think about that. We just live here. Like we're not keeping a culture alive. I haul trees around. I chop wood.
Yep.
And they'll get report and they'll be like, yeah, every now and then. And go, so how's the book affected your life? And they'll basically be like, well, every now and then a reporter will show up and ask me questions, and I'll be very confused about why they care because it's really not that interesting.
Yep. Hmm.
So, but yeah, there was like a whole New Jersey subculture called the Pineys, and they're kind of gone. The New Jersey boardwalk used to be something when I was growing up completely different than what it became today. Jersey Shore was a large part of that. Hurricane Sandy was another part of it. The Seaside Boardwalk fire was yet another aspect to it. But the thing about Jersey Shore is that in New Jersey themselves, we actually have like this huge love-hate relationship with the Jersey Shore show because the people who are on that show are obviously, they're dumb kids and morons, and they talk with that ridiculous slang and they make New Jerseyans look bad and whatever. But on the flip side, like, and this is legitimately, non-ironically to their credit, they've actually invested a lot of time and money into the state, and like they've legitimately, they built bars and they make appearances and they like advocate for the state, and a lot of them have actually like gotten families and kind of grown up. So there's New Jersey has this really strange love-hate relationship with Jersey Shore in that it brought a ton of money to the shore, but everybody kind of hates the image that it brought. And it's like they're not really bad people. They're just dumb. You know. They're just stupid. But none of them are really, none of the Jersey Shore casts were like really malicious or anything like that.
Right.
They weren't even really grifters, to be honest, which is kind of surprising. You would think that they would be, but no, they were actually fairly generous, all things considered. Were they stupid? Yes, they were very stupid.
They weren't
You know,
malicious.
no, but they weren't malicious, and they seemed to genuinely care about New Jersey, which is which is something. Uh, the thing is though that the Jersey Shore, as time went on, like the boardwalks just became so trashy, and then Hurricane Sandy happened and just absolutely decimated the boardwalk. They actually did a fairly good job rebuilding, and then at the Seaside Boardwalk, which is one of the larger boardwalks in New Jersey, along with the Wildwood Boardwalk, the Ocean City Boardwalk, and Jenkinson's Boardwalk. But the Seaside Boardwalk had a fire, and a lot of the places that like survived Hurricane Sandy were destroyed in the fire. It was pretty tragic. Uh, it was just a random electrical fire. Nothing particular sparked it. Haha, spark. Get it? Do you get it? Ho ho, I kill me.
What?
Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, Mega Buster Shepherd says the only thing I remember about Jersey Shore is them showing up in that one Three Stooges film. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry, I
There's a
wish I
Three
did.
Stooges film. I never watched it. Though I do like one guy unironically called himself The Situation. I was down.
Yes, the situation. Oh man, that dude was actually kind of based. I
uh,
mean, not really. He was a moron,
but he was a slightly
but
smarter moron than the rest of them.
well, no. If anything, he might have been stupider.
But like he would watch the show so he know what was going on. That's
Okay, so
incredibly
here's the
smart.
thing about reality shows too. I think that people genuinely underestimate how much of them is scripted. Probably at least at the low end, and this is on the better shows, 60% of it is scripted. Worse shows, you'd probably go up to like 90% of it is scripted.
Fine.
So Jersey Shore, you're probably looking somewhere in the middle. Like probably about 70% of the Jersey Shore was scripted. The thing is, though, that what they did was so boring. But I mean, granted, I'm the wrong audience because I hate reality shows on principle. I hate the concept of them. I hate the execution of them, and I hate everything about them in all forms. I have never seen a reality show, of the type where it's just follow X around that I actually liked.
Yeah.
So I'm probably the wrong person to ask. But I remember when they were on, like they were just so boring. All they would do was make out with each other and get drunk at bars. That was it. That
And
was the show.
fight. And then they would take off their shirts, and it was like, but why?
Yeah,
You don't
pretty much.
understand. You don't understand how low of a common denominator Jersey Shore was, and how perfect it is, and how perfect a metaphor for the downfall of America it is.
It kind of is, but like again, that's the thing about the Jersey Shore cast. I really do remember it at the time because everybody kind of gritted their teeth with them. Like nobody hated the Jersey Shore cast. Like we all hated the show, especially people who lived in New Jersey hated the show most of all. But the cast, like we didn't hate. Nobody hated the cast. Like they put money into the bars, they put advertising into the state, and they spoke. And they would not speak badly about it. They all seem to be relatively nice people. And even like when I asked my parents about it, they said, "Well, the thing is, you got to remember that like they're actually not that dissimilar to us when we were younger and like growing up in that area or whatever." And maybe that's it. I don't know. That was never my personality, so I can't relate at all.
But they were somehow a net good for society.
Were they a net good? Maybe a net neutral? The Jersey Shore. So the Jersey Shore got tons of money, and they got a ton of infrastructure too as a result of them. And they really did do a ton after Hurricane Sandy to help with the fundraising. Like They were legitimately, nothing bad to say about what they did after Hurricane Sandy to raise money for the state. But with that said, what they did was turn it so trashy. Like the Seaside Boardwalk. So Jenkinson's Boardwalk these are the nuances of the New Jersey boardwalks. The actual nicest boardwalk is the Wildwood Boardwalk because Wildwood is literally like a vacation area. It has absolutely gorgeous beaches, like some of the best beaches in the country. Gorgeous, and it's an actual like almost a resort area. I have gone on like weekend vacations to Wildwood multiple times. It's a beautiful place. So the actual nicest boardwalk is the Wildwood Boardwalk, and the reason is that it's tourist boardwalk. Seaside Boardwalk is the boardwalk for New Jerseyans. It's got all of the New Jerseyan stuff, and the thing is that after Jersey Shore, it became super trashy. Jenkinson's Boardwalk, the boardwalk for people with children. It had the fun house, and it had the most childish stuff, and it was a little bit smaller, but it was a good boardwalk, and I think it still is today, for that matter. To my knowledge, Jenkinson's Boardwalk, even though I haven't been there in a while, is still like the boardwalk for kids. Seaside is the boardwalk for people from New Jersey. If you want to know what the average New Jersey boardwalk is like, what New Jerseyans think of when they think of the boardwalk, you go to Seaside. And they just made it super trashy. You have all of these shops selling these terrible, tacky, cheap shirts. You would get, like, for example, Bugs Bunny hanging out with Daffy Duck smoking a blunt on a T-shirt, and they would be selling that. And you would have tons and tons of these little stall shops with T-shirts like that. You'd have all of these really crappy fast food places and pizza places and whatever. And sure, some of the food on the Jersey Shore is actually really good. Like Maruka's Pizza is excellent. Three Brothers Pizza, also excellent. Things like that. But some of it is also just like super cheap and terrible. And it's part of the trashiness that was kind of brought in after Jersey Shore, especially the bars. They would advertise the bars there in the most garish ways and the most obnoxious ways, and it was just terrible. The one thing that we have that I do love, that like the Jersey Boardwalk is basically the last place in the world that has an actual industry based on this. And this is legitimately going to be a sad thing when it dies, is arcades. The Jersey Boardwalk has like an arcade industry. It's a staple of the boardwalk. There are several very, very large arcades on the boardwalk. And when we go to the boardwalk, we basically spend all of our time in the arcades.
So you're saying there's an entire culture just in there.
The arcade culture. So that's a whole thing from like the 60s, 70s, really the 80s more than anything else. I think that started in the 60s, but I could be overshooting by a bit. I know arcades though, like their heyday was in the 80s, and that they mostly have died since then. Not on the Jersey Shore. On the Jersey Shore, arcades are incredibly popular.
Yep.
And it's going to be a sad day when they die. So, Ben, if you ever visit New Jersey, one thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the shore and we're going to spend a few hours in the arcade.
I'm down.
You'll enjoy it.
I probably will. Never
$1 to play a game. I didn't say they were cheap arcades.
That's true. There is, arcades aren't that grim. There are a lot of enthusiasts running around, but it's not nearly as good as it should be. My one takeaway
Bar One Studio, yeah. You cannot pump your own gas, and you know what? That's number one. That's one of my favorite things about the state. And number two, we actually have cheaper gas than the rest of the country. I don't know how the logic of that works, but it's true.
How much per gallon?
Right now, after when Biden went into office, the price skyrocketed.
Yeah.
We're currently at like $2.75 to $2.79.
Okay, you're about where we are. I was about to say, there's no way an East Coast,
New Jersey, but like look it up. I know it's close, obviously, but we actually have like some of the cheapest gas in the country. And I think it's related to the fact that we don't pump our own gas, though don't ask me to explain the casual connection because I don't know it.
Fair.
This was hurt a little bit when Christie, when he was governor, raised the gas prices, which made my dad, who used to commute a long way, extremely angry. That Christie promised he wouldn't do it, and he raised the gas prices. And his his justification for this was that it was either that or he was going to have to like raise the sales tax or something. And my dad was like, "I don't care." He said he wouldn't do it, and he did it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's Chris Christie in a nutshell.
That's what defeated George Bush Sr. He was like, read my lips, no new taxes. Raise taxes. Got us into a war. He was a sitting war president and he lost his reelection. Admittedly, it's to Bill Clinton, and Megabuster Shepard says, good night, sweet prince. And Bill Clinton is smooth as silk, smooth as smooth can be. He is.
So,
Hmm?
you are correct. I will say this. You are correct that there are arcades in areas outside the boardwalks. I mean, I've been to a few of them, and there are certain places, like you mentioned, like enthusiast spots.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way: the Jersey Shore is the only place where arcades basically operate like the same way that they did in the '80s.
Wow, I have no memories of this. But actually, I kind of
Not
do.
what I mean. Like I mean
I know, but I
functionally. I mean functionally.
I was
Functionally,
yeah.
you could going to an arcade in the '80s on the Jersey Shore and going to an arcade now on the Jersey Shore. You wouldn't really notice a difference. It just works like it's not a vintage arcade or a retro arcade. It's the arcade.
Yep. All right. Well, let's see here. I'm pretty talked out. My throat hurts quite a bit. Apparently, there's been 13 new comments. Is that you, Anthony? You said you'd leave this alone. No, I'm kidding. I'm messing with you.
I don't think it was me.
With
Some of like one or two of them might have been me, but most of them weren't me.
no, you're right. Most of them weren't you. Where's the rest of the comments? It's RJ. He said I have a stir fry of anger comments.
Don't.
Oops.
Yeah, try not to say the name because I don't hate these people and I don't want them yelling at me.
But I hate these people. No, I'm kidding.
You do, yes.
I
no.
do. I do. So
I do and I don't.
I do and I don't.
I have a love-hate relationship. So I've spoken to them before, and the one that you're referring to specifically as well, and several of these people who are arguing with me, and they really are generally, there's a blind spot when it comes to millennials, but they're mostly good people.
Yeah.
Millennials are a common blind spot with people of an older generation.
Yep. Oh,
and it's somewhat understandable because they're the ones in the news, but I'm also just tired of it, and I don't regret my comments in that thread. I'll put it that way. I don't regret anything that I said, or the way that or the tone that I used, or the way that I said it. And I've thought about it too. You know, should I be saying this as a Christian? I'm like, you know what though? Like this lack of compassion and this lack of charity that they're showing is unchristian.
Yep.
And it should be called out. The fact that it 100% should be called out. Somebody should be calling it out. I'm tired that people aren't doing it, so I'm gonna do it.
Yep. Like, if the argument was not Christian, I would not cotton to it. And that doesn't sound weird to anyone who understands Christianity or me or whatever. But like the thing is that all of our arguments, all of our philosophies are filtered through Christ and Christ alone. If our arguments and philosophies do not mesh with Christ and his philosophies, Christ and Christ alone, the blood of Christ, the resurrection of Christ, it is worthless to us. It is worse than useless. It might actually hurt us and hurt us bad. But you know what? Next week we'll pick up this argument and we will humor Megabuster Shepherd and we'll talk about the revival of Christianity in America, Protestantism, but also I would like the Catholic perspective for some things, which I will bring up.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not even so much that like I don't think I should be. There's not much I could add to how to revive Protestantism in America.
Yep.
It's not the It's not the thing that I am directly concerned with. It's something that you would be concerned with more than I would. I mean, I'm more concerned with the fact that the church is now currently headed by a pseudo commie. So,
Yep, yep, yep.
yeah.
I like this comment. And we'll end with this comment. We'll talk about it next week. But this is the comment. I love it. Men will literally create a vast shadow organization to engineer Titanic biomecha from the DNA of captured angels imbued with their wife's soul and force their depressed children to pilot them into battle to determine the fate of humanity and defy God rather than go to therapy. It's true.
And it's the right choice.
It is the right choice. All right. Well, thank you as always for joining me.